So I wanted to try something a little new this time. I'm going to start going over some sports-related news around, sports like the NBA, NFL, stuff that you guys would want to listen to. And today I'm going to start off with the NBA as they have officially come to an agreement on an offseason after the COVID-shortened bubble season we just ended over a month ago. So, per Tim Bontemps and Adrian Wojnarowski, NBA and Players Union reach agreement on amended CBA, with free agents set to begin November 20th. The NBA and the Players Union have reached an agreement in principle on the start of the 2020-21 season, as well as an amended collective bargaining agreement the two sides announced Monday night. The deal calls for free agency to begin at 6 p.m. Eastern on Friday, November 20th, 2 days after next week's NBA draft. As was agreed to last week, the regular season will begin December 22nd, and the schedule will be 72 games. Free agency not as big of a deal as it probably was in the past, or not in the past. I mean, this year, not as big as it was, especially last year and previous years, because Anthony Davis, while he is a top 5 player, arguably top 3, remains. People think he will. The majority of people think he is going to stay in the Los Angeles Lakers uniform after just winning his first championship over a month ago. Just wanted to talk about that a little bit and tell you what's going on in the next few weeks with the NBA. And here we go. We're already getting stories coming out. James Harden, Russell Westbrook concerned about the direction of the Houston Rockets, per Woj and Tim McMahon of ESPN. As the Houston Rockets navigate an offseason of major change, a new challenge is emerging for the franchise: the uncertainty of former MVP guards James Harden and Russell Westbrook on their futures with their team, sources told ESPN. In the wake of the departures of head coach Mike D'Antoni and general manager Daryl Morey, Harden and Westbrook have expressed concern about the direction of the franchise through direct conversations or discussions with their representatives and the Rockets front office, sources said. Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta recently promoted general manager Rafael Stone and recently hired head coach Stephen Silas have emphasized that the franchise remains committed to They remain committed to fielding a contender while featuring the two perennial All-Stars in their primes. Now, let me stop you right there. Russell Westbrook is not in his prime anymore. Yeah, he might have scored 27 points a game in the regular season. Given it was only 50 games, he's coming off of several knee surgeries and other injuries. Russell Westbrook has been, I want to say, 2 years removed from his prime. He's on the downhill. I wouldn't consider him in his prime. However, the concerns expressed by Harden and Westbrook that Houston's window as a contender could be closing has left the organization fearful that the superstar's commitment to remaining with the Rockets could be wavering. Now, I don't know how true this is for both James and Russ, because obviously I don't have any inside information. But if I were the Houston Rockets, I would look to trade Russell Westbrook over James Harden, because I think James Harden gives you a better chance at winning a championship than Russell Westbrook does. Russell Westbrook's playoff stats were not very good at all this past season. In 8 games in the bubble, he averaged 17.9 points, almost 4.5 assists, 7 rebounds on 42% shooting, which is his highest playoff total since 2011-2012. Not very good if that's the highest he's had in his entire career almost in the playoffs, while only shooting 24% from 3 and 53% from the line, which is downwards of more than 23% of what he did in the regular season. I think he's just kind of a shell of himself, and I shouldn't say a shell of himself, but in the playoffs and as we continue to go farther into his career, it's tougher for him to stay healthy, and I don't think you're going to teach Russell Westbrook how to shoot any better than he has in his entire career, so I'd say he's more of a liability than he is a asset. Nonetheless, still a great player, but if I were the Houston Rockets, I would look to move on from Russell Westbrook. As we go to the CBS article from Brad Botkin, Russell Westbrook trade rumors. Knicks Clippers have interest in trading for the Houston Star, per report. The Houston Rockets at first glance would not appear to be a team with much roster flexibility, so instead they shook things up on the court. They tucked ties with, we already read this about the GM and coach. Silas is referring to Houston's paint-by-numbers offensive approach that makes no secret of the spot on the court from which they are trying to score. But might there be more room for more unpredictability with the roster as well? On Tuesday, Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer said on the Mismatch podcast that Russell Westbrook is believed to be available and that both the New York Knicks and, surprisingly, the Los Angeles Clippers could be interested in trading for the Houston Star. Quote, I did have multiple sources that I trust tell me that teams believe Russell Westbrook could be had, O'Connor said. That Westbrook could be had, and I've heard that the Clippers have interest. I heard that the Clippers have interest in Westbrook, and whether or not anything materializes there, who knows? As for the Los Angeles Clippers, I don't believe they should trade for Russell Westbrook. If they're looking to trade for another superstar, I think their most likely candidate would probably be a Chris Paul, who is, I believe, a better leader and honestly a better overall player than Russell Westbrook. I mean, he may not score as many points, but I think he's a better ball facilitator. I think he would work much better with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George if the Clippers remain as they were last year, which I believe they will. So I don't believe Russell Westbrook to the Clippers would be a good move. I don't think it would match well at all. As for the New York Knicks, I think we hear every year that they're going to get that superstar. And, last year we heard that they were going to get Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving in free agency. They were going to draft Zion. They were going to build a super team in 2 seconds. And then all came to a crashing halt when Zion was drafted by the New Orleans Pelicans, along with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, headed across the bridge to Brooklyn. So, as for the Knicks, I don't understand why they would try to get Russell Westbrook, other than for just selling tickets, because there's no point in trading for Russell Westbrook if he's the only star that's coming to your team. And I think the Knicks have done a terrible job organizationally, but that's for another video. But yeah, trading Russell Westbrook to either of those teams doesn't make any sense at all. I don't really know what team would make sense, to be completely honest with you. But these are not two of the teams that I would look at. Now, as for a name I just mentioned, Chris Paul, per the New York Post, this is Mark Berman who wrote this. Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook trade talks swirl with Knicks and mix. The Knicks have a major competitor for Chris Paul, their top choice at point guard, and if the Russell Westbrook hits the trade market, the Knicks may have a challenger for him too. ESPN reported that the Suns have been in talks that are gaining traction with the Thunder in a deal for Paul, who is a former client of Knicks president Leon Rose, when Rose was an agent. Paul played for the Suns' coach Monty Williams when he was in New Orleans in 2010 and 2011. To boot, the Suns have had cap space to absorb a part of Paul's enormous contract that has 2 years and $85 million left on it. The Knicks have shown interest too, but reportedly Oklahoma City's asking price has been too high. The Post had reported the Thunder like one of the Knicks prospects, Kevin Knox. I would really interest this place for. I would be very interested if Chris Paul was traded to the Phoenix Suns and pair him up with Devin Booker in the backcourt. I think you need to have more of a. I'd like to say, wing presence, like a dominant, more wing scorer. But I'd like to see what a Chris Paul Devin Booker backfield would look like, along with guys like DeAndre Ayton. I would be down to see a Chris Paul, Devin Booker-led team. I think that backcourt would be really nasty. I think Chris Paul would make sure Devin Booker gets all the touches he can because he's a scoring monster. Especially we saw that in the bubble before the playoffs, where the Phoenix Suns won all 8 of their games and just missed the playoffs by a game. But yeah, it would be cool seeing a Chris Paul to New Orleans. Chris Paul to Phoenix trade. As for the Knicks. Yeah, I don't see getting a Chris Paul. I mean, that makes more sense than a Russell Westbrook on their team, but yeah, I don't see it. Yeah, I guess that's it for me for this video, guys. Thanks for listening in. If you got any requests of what you want me to talk about or look up and report on, let me know. Thanks. Just subscribe, like, comment, do all that cool shit for me. That'd be great. And I'll catch you on the next video.